Hello and welcome back to the Reflect Now podcast. So glad that you have joined us. We're heading into episode 3. I'd encourage you catch up if you haven't. And this is really a space where we get to hear people's stories. I think most of the feedback we've got is just how inspired people have been, hearing about how everyday people within our community, people like you and me who are just following what God has called them to do as they reflect heaven here on earth. And so today I'm actually joined by Gordon. Gordon is a partner here at City, and he runs an amazing ministry with his wife and team. And he's going to tell us a bit about it. But Gordon, as I introduce you, if no one knows who Gordon is, if someone listening is new to this, who's Gordon? What are you all about?
Thank you, Duncan. Yeah, my name's Gordon. I run a ministry called Legae La Nnette, which is a Tswana name for a real home. It's based in Mildersdrift, and we're in between a rehab and a recovery center. We call ourselves a reintegration center, where we take in people who have been heavily involved in addiction or just lost everything in life and need a hand up. And we work through a recovery process, obviously a Christ-based process. And we really trust most of all that in this process they find God, that when they come to us, they are loved, they're accepted no matter who they are, warts and all, they come just the way they are, and that God loves us that exact same way, while we hate him and fight in him, we are loved. And when they experience that and their lives changes, what our prayer and desire is to see a life really changed and really turned around. And yeah, it's an interesting road to walk. Yeah,
amazing. And before we jump into a conversation, because I love having conversations with you, you have so many just amazing stories of how God has taken you through this journey. We often will break the ice in our conversation just with a little bit of a get to know. We call it this or that.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you some options,
all right.
This or that, and you tell us what you would prefer.
Okay.
What would be your choice, your preference?
All
so
right.
First one is easy. I even gave you the example. A bush holiday or a beach holiday?
Bush holiday.
A text or a phone call?
Phone call. Old school.
Ooh, yeah, I was going to say, just hear your voice, especially in COVID, people need, need to see it now. A book or a movie?
A movie. I can't read except the Bible.
We won't worry about that.
Okay.
As long as you got that one under the belt, we'll be all right.
All right.
Our other one is old music or new music?
Bit of both, believe it or not.
A
Yeah.
little bit neutral.
Yeah.
There you go. I think so much of this is, taking it into our conversation, even as we had spoken before. I think I'm always just struck whenever we speak or whenever you share what's, how you guys got the farm, how you guys were led by God to this, how this was, running a reintegration program was never necessarily a part of your original plan, and yet God has just taken you to this.
True.
There's just the story and journey of God's faithfulness through everything, and sometimes even in the midst of, hey, we don't get it right, we're even faithless ourselves. And even just sharing around kind of your heart behind helping out these guys who arrive on the farm where literally they're down and out and in need of, they're at rock bottom. So often we get to our rock bottom moments because of our faithlessness, because we've followed our own path. We haven't taken the path that God has called us to. I think just to dive a little bit more into kind of your guys' philosophy and process, and just how you really, build this thing as a Christ-based thing, and really He is the answer to any of this. For someone who maybe isn't as acquainted with problems of addiction or trauma, or some of the things that you have people arrive on your doorstep with, give us some pictures around what that can look like from start to finish in the ideal world.
Okay.
Because you have stuff that's coming your way that's hectic. And it's how did you guys start? How did you adapt your process? What were some of the key ingredients that you realized, hey, this is actually how God's going to move this person from that space into knowing Him?
Okay, it's not a simple process, and I don't think there's any process that works, because it's about change, So we prefer to take in people who want change and want help, because I've learned I can't change anyone. You can't really change anyone. I'd love to change my wife. She hopes I would change. But we can only really change ourselves. And to me, I learned in the early days that God is the person that changes. His spirit touches people's hearts and melts them and changes them into a good, soft, fleshy heart. So I see our role more of facilitating that process, that people arrive at our doorstep broken. They've been in places where a lot of us maybe haven't been in life. They've done things that they really regret, that they're embarrassed, that they're ashamed of. And it's a hard process to accept that. And we work the Celebrate Recovery process, which is a 12-step program, has the 8 Beatitudes of the Bible in it, which helps you to get to the core of the issue. So to me, every person at some stage, I'm sure, has had a real broken heart. And you need to get to that heart issue to be able to help person. And I find it's generally a form of rejection is what I call the heart issue behind everything. So it could be parents getting divorced. It could be your spouse leaving you. It could be bullied at school. It's hundreds of things and a mixture of things, like myself and my own personal experiences in my younger days. And that shapes and molds you into this individual with your walls and barriers. And people come very closed up and very hurt and very broken. And I've found no matter what I do, I can't change that. But I know encouraging and loving and accepting and showing grace and mercy, which God does, is what melts and changes that heart. And the guys will come to church and wow, and everyone comes back after their first week and they say, hey, we loved it and it was great, It's been a bit different with lockdown now, and we're missing that a bit. And a lot of them then give their life to the Lord, or some of them make a recommitment. And that's when you can really work with the individual, because we need grace. We need it daily, but you need to be forgiven, and then you need to forgive, which is the hard part. They battle to forgive themselves. They'll forgive their parents or forgive others, but they battle to forgive themselves for what they do, and that's a bit of a process to work through. But once that turning spot comes, to me, I can look at them and I can see them in that T-shirt, been there, done it, got the T-shirt, that the old life is a thing of the past and the new to come. Yes, there's struggles, there's battles, and there's a lot of challenges on the way, but you can see that change. You can see the lights come on, and those people who choose that way and choose to change are the ones who go out and do well. We got amazing testimony, a guy coming Family Day this Saturday to share. Sure, he's 7 years clean now. He's busy doing his MBA, and he's director of an IT company. Started off, came to me from prison, from a government rehab, arrived at our farm, checkers packed with his life belongings, tattoos, middle age. I thought, sure, where's this guy ever going to get a job? And he never applied for a job. He spent a whole year with us, and when he was ready, God opened the door and the perfect job came, and he started as a telephonic IT salesperson. Worked himself out to team leader of the sales team, to manager of the sales team. And I think 2 years ago, he was made a director, and as I said, he's studying his MBA.
Madness. I mean, it's so encouraging.
And that's what God can do, you see. And he was patient. I'm a difficult person, and I expect and I want things now and there, and a lot of people are like that, we want now. And God has everything so perfectly planned, and we lose sight of that, I think, that he knows exactly what's good at the right time. And we have to persevere and be patient and sometimes kick the sand or kick the dog, even if it gets that bad. And he opens the doors. And I think, I know he sees our heart. And when our hearts are ready, he can work with us, So my heart's not ready. He can't change me or do anything because I'll just rebel and be otherwise and mess things up, which I normally do. But if I'm there and I'm led by the Spirit, God can use you then, in any situation, in a decision on the farm. A guy might come and sit down and start talking about stuff, and God will just give you the wisdom to assess what's the core of the problem, or to point it out and say, hey, maybe it's this, and let's start at that basic point. So to me, it's critical just to be led by the Lord, to let the Spirit move. And it's quite sad, because we get so caught up in all the pressures, and we often lose sight of that. And we need to keep reminding, Lord, sure, forgive me. Holy Spirit, come, just grant me the wisdom, give me the peace, help me in this situation. And he does. I think the biggest thing I've learned is this: God is so faithful. Yeah. God has never, ever let me down, and I don't believe he ever will. I let him down, and I make mistakes, and I'm human, and I get annoyed sometimes. Even today, I almost lost my temper with someone, which isn't a good example. And I had to stand back and say, well, let's meet and chat. And then, the grace came in, and the Holy Spirit came and led us and guided us in the conversation, So
I think so often we get in our own way, isn't it? That
yes.
We can drop the ball. We can get our heart not in the right place, putting up that obstacle, getting in the way. I mean, you've spoken about the journey, and you're dealing in hectic transformation. You get to see it up front, close and personal.
Yeah.
And there's so many success stories, like you just mentioned. But I think also there's the other side, and I know that this is true for you guys. There've been the cases that didn't work out.
There's a lot of those too.
In the cases where it doesn't go where we would want to see it go. And so often, how then in the midst of that kind of disappointment, because that's obviously a place you and your team will find yourselves in, how do you guard against that getting in the way of the journey and what God's called you to do?
It's definitely a tough place, So I think of Gavin, our counselor, the first person who counseled when they relapsed and went back, I'd say going back to their vomit, he struggled with it and he took it personally, and we do. I remember when the first guy that I'd helped, and he got a job, and I bought him a scooter, and he's going to work, and he pawned it and used it and went back to his old self. I was devastated. It took me 2 months to actually come right, and for God to say, but Gordon, it's not about you. It's about others. Because we're always so self-centered and think it's all about me, but it's not. So that's one thing. And what we do in the farm is we realize, it's not a forced thing. It's like getting to know Christ. When we're ready, the door will open, and it's maybe just not their time. And we need to love them and forgive them and set them free. And I always believe, and I know in my heart, that everyone who comes to Legae, whether they're a success story or not, God's touched their hearts in some way, and that moment will be a reminder for the rest of their life until they come back. And I encourage my team, because I know guys have phoned me after 3 months, 6 months, a year, and say, hey, Gordon, sorry for the way I left, or stealing your stuff, or whatever the case is, But I've come clean, I've got a job, and I say, well, let's meet for coffee if they're in the area, And I say, we've always loved you, we've always forgiven you, we've always prayed that this day will come. Mm-hmm. So, we're happy for you. So we need to learn to accept those failures, but not, to me, it's not really a failure. Mm. It's a bad choice they made once again, and to just have hope that God and the seed that's planted will be watered somewhere else.
Amazing.
So yeah,
I think that's so important to hold that thing so lightly. This isn't mine. This is God's.
Yes.
This isn't I'm not the one who does the saving, he does.
Exactly.
And that doesn't stop me when things don't go the way we think they should. It doesn't stop me from the action he's called me to. It doesn't change. It might I might learn from it. I might adapt how we go about it. But at the end of the day, when the next person arrives, I'm not gonna hold that baggage against them and hold back in terms of what God's called us to do.
Yeah.
And just as we wrap up, I think so much of your story is that it speaks about God's faithfulness. It speaks about the journey you take people on around transformation, giving them over and saying, you know what, God, you do this. This is about you. What do you think anyone hearing your story should walk away with? What do you think the encouragement or the challenge is to every person?
I think the biggest thing is never give up. Don't let your weaknesses hold you back. Focus on the good points. Trust the Lord. Just trust Him, give it to Him. He will lead you, He will guide you, He will equip you, and He will provide for you too. So from financial to spiritual to wisdom to whatever it might be, He will give you what you need when you need it. Just hang in there. It's easy, and I've come to those moments where I wanted to give up and thought, sure, yeah, another guy's relapse. I'm wasting my time. No, you're not. We're dealing with people. We're dealing with people's lives. God's creation there in front of you, and that's what you need to remember. And it's not about us; it's about them. So, yeah.
Thanks so much, Gordon.
Thank you, Duncan.
I really do hope that this has spoken to you. It's a story of God's timing, God's faithfulness. It's a story of keeping on the good fight, not out of what the outcome is, knowing that actually the battle is God's. We're just soldiers in the equation and called to do what we do. I encourage you to share this. I'd encourage you to subscribe, continue to follow along with us as new episodes come out. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Reflect Now. We will see you very soon. Goodbye.